if you know anything about me, you know I tend to keep a private-ish public blog. Hard to find if you're not the right people. But if you found this, you might be. Hoping that YouTube's indexing is similarly obscure, and that if I use the right code phrases, the right keywords, this is findable to people who I'd like to. In my own phrasing, I would say the chosen faithful, but that's part narrative, part quote, part dramatic flair. You know, the intent, the meaning underlies the pretty coding of words I tend to use. But let's start with introductions. My name is Lania Serrana Silverson. I've had other names. They don't matter right now. Were you to approach a few different frames, either in dissociation or spirituality, psychology, trauma, just kind of observation and pattern recognition, you would maybe see 2 or 3, sometimes 4 discrete patterns, mostly collapsing down to 2. You could, in some ways, say I have 2 modes, and I might say, well, I relate to my other mode as another self. Listen, the people who are listening to this probably already know all this stuff. It's I do have to kind of consider the unknown other, the fascinating little people who get put in my path. And you are so fascinating to me, dear listener. But you could say I'm more Serrana than Silverson, if you feel me. Or Silver or Satin, in that case. But, yeah. I'm on the road right now, and heading back after a run. 30. Working artist type, although I do a lot of manual labor, really, too. These sorts of things you have to kind of approach from all angles to make it work, You want to follow your passions. People will say, well, you'll burn out, you'll never make money. And true, I am quite poor. Although my problems really amount to more of a cyclical issue, environmental, not being listened to until it's well too late. Years of mismanaged treatments, being carpet bombed with antipsychotics, when probably I just have very bad anxiety and attachment issues, to be quite honest. I'm weird, I'm not insane, or everyone's insane and I'm within some operable realm. Wow, West Virginia is hell to get out of. Why did it... Anyway, why? Fun. But yeah, so had some thoughts about how to approach this. Yeah, I've kept a journal version of this, but as I've come to realize recently, text is certainly a good medium, but it's probably not it's something I'm good at. Me and my other Sera, we're both good writers, but maybe not the best texters, and there is a difference, and you will do well to know it. So I'm trying a more personal approach, a little bit of audio. Maybe Sen does this, maybe she doesn't. I tend not to expect her to do the things I do. She has her own operatives, and so do I. Please let me in, good Toyota. Thank you so much. You are the salt of the earth. I adore you. There was a man behind me in another Toyota, or maybe a woman. I didn't get... You shouldn't judge these things based off look, but whoever they were, they had a puppet hanging out of their thing, and they were it was just flexing, and it was just great. I was overjoyed. They just outside their driver's side window, they just had this puppet, and they were just flexing it, and it must have been talking or singing or something. I couldn't hear the words, but it was very emotive. I was very pleased. So yeah, I don't know. Witchy is a word for it. I don't quite like that word, and I tend to find people who self-describe as such don't have a lot for me and me for them. But I do find that with most anyone, really. I'm so terribly extroverted for someone of my kind, but most people like me are dead, aren't they? So I don't think I'm in any way uniquely fucked up, but most of us do either internalize, Sen, I can think of some others, but I won't name them. I'm going to try to keep this to me. Yada, yada, yada. I externalize a bit. I'm pretty social, but I have that like laundry list of trauma that tends to create that look behind the eyes. And as I did find, and the reason this project tends to exist is that these things aren't. I have found difficulty in expressing the full extent of any of this, just anyone. And in a conversation last night with a dear friend of mine, the good Zachary, my brother, I did have to come to grips with the fact that maybe it's just not something anyone can really be brought in on, and that's why this exists. Engage at your own pace. It's for me as much as it is for any hypothetical. The names I can think of, the names I don't know, and maybe will know, maybe I won't. There's always something to gain in these kinds of things, something to learn, and I myself operate on some measure of growth. I tend to like people who are very different from me. I tend to like people who know things I don't. I admire that quite a bit, really. Why ever limit yourself? Why base yourself on essentialism, on kind, on notions that's, why wouldn't I ever want to grow and be better if I could? And if there is some unique capacity I have with everything done to me, the way the brain changes and, decades of physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, broad spectrum abuse, spiritual too, although that's a different conversation. I've got some thoughts about a couple of deities or things that would like themselves considered as such that have some control in the northeastern Maryland area. But listen, this is a project, and we'll see if it goes a little bit better than the kind of word vomit text I can kind of fall into. Works better when I'm positioning it around like a game thing or a short story, but even a poem, and we'll get into those. I'll do some readings here maybe. But this is an unnamed blogging podcast audio blog. I don't know. I think it'd be a cool idea. I'd love like Medium, but for like voice notes, So let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, we call it a failed experiment. We move on. Trying to think if there's anything else really about me you really need to know. I think most of it really comes through not in the descriptors, but the voice and the way I talk, right? So, we'll roll with that for now. But hopefully these entries can come rolling down as I have thoughts. And, hey, if you're out there, whoever you are, be safe, be well, and let's talk again soon.